Hello everybody, welcome to another session. Today I'm going to be talking about quick Revit tips and tricks part 2. Today my agenda is going to be, I'm going to talk about 6 things today. The first one I'm going to do is talk about a line plan sheet view using gridline. The next one I'm going to talk about is how you control family that shows up on plan. Okay. And the next one I'm going to talk about is using calculated value to control fake spot elevation. The next two is going to be talking about general notes using schedule key. The other one is going to be using fixed schedule. Lastly, I'm going to end it up with using Decal to create some sort of like a massing, like a massing study for your site. All right, let's get to it. I'm just going to open up a Revit project. I'm just going to open up my trusty project. Now, what tends to happen is that when you align Revit view on using plan, most of the time what tends to happen is that you would use grid lines, like the sheet grids. So what I'm talking about is that you would go in here. Let's assume that you're going to use one of the title block. And within this title block, you will probably put this guide grid and say, you want to create a new one. I never find the guide grid to be very useful. It's very cumbersome because you have to go in there, set it up, and do it yourself. But what I found is that there is another way you can do. I'm just going to show you how I would do it. So here, the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to basically duplicate a couple plans. Let's assume that this one is going to be for E1. Okay, arch E1. I'm going to duplicate again, because dependent, and just basically just use arch E1. So let's assume that you have those two plans created. Now, for those you don't know, you can actually do this. Let's assume that you create a new drawings. Okay, I'm going to call this AR001 level 1. Okay. Now, what you could do is that you could go copy the clipboard and just Control V. And what happens is that it's basically going to Control V a couple times. What it does is that it basically quickly creates your sheet view. So here I'm just going to go put in level 6. Okay. So the first thing you would do is that you just place in the view into the sheet. The first view you're going to put is just put it anywhere you want. Let's assume that I'm going to put it there. The next thing you want to do is you draw a detail line. All right. You notice that the detail line will snap, okay, to grid lines. So every time you have grid lines already created, it will snap to the grid lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the K2. Just copy that. Just delete the grid. And then you just go on to the next particular view, and you just say place current view. And next thing you would do with this is just drag and drop, place it anywhere you want, and now what you can do is just move, you'll snap onto that grid, and voila. Okay, very simple. I use this quite a bit. I never use guide grid, whatever you call it, because I never find this to be very useful. It's maybe useful for some, but for me, I just never find it useful. I just use this method. It's much easier. All right. Second part I'm going to talk about is, let's say you want to control family to show up on the plan. All right. For this particular case, I'm just going to build the family. Let's build the furniture family. So within this furniture family, I'm just going to give it width and height. So here I'm just going to quickly just draw in a quick furniture. so let's assume that you have that parameter. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a masking region. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to create a new family. New project, sorry. Let's go to architecture. So I'm going to just load in this particular family in there. So you can save this name, but for me I'm just going to place it in like that. So the first one I'm going to do is that I'm going to create one called table. Okay, so the table is going to have, let's assume that it's going to be 48 inches by 36 inches. Okay. And then if you want the other one to be chair, let's assume that this is chair. And I'm just going to make it 2'6" by 2'6". Okay. If I place it on top of this, and you have that thing turned on, you notice that both of those will overlap each other, okay, because he doesn't know what to do with which one goes on top. So what I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to go edit, okay, since this is like that. Next thing I'm going to do is that I'm just going to add a height. Okay, so let's assume that this is 600. Now with this, I'm just going to call height, and I would put it as an instance parameter. I would create what's known as the model line from here to there, and I would make this thing invisible so you don't see it. So next, I'm just going to load it in, override. Let's see if this works. So here, I'm just going to say 1200, and voila. So that's how you control it. If you want this to be on top of that, so all you have to do is just call it 1500, and it will basically go on top of that. So it's a quick trick. This works if you only have masking region. Okay. If you have a model will hide itself. But if you're using a 2D kind of a thing where you're using a lot of mask, this is kind of a perfect way to do it. So I typically just change that height so that you can control which one goes on top and which one goes to the bottom. This not only works for a family, okay, only furniture, but it works for different variations of families. Now keep in mind, this will not work if it's a generic model. Anything that's cut, this will not work as well. It only works mostly if you're doing 2D element. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So using calculated value to control spot elevation. Right, so in this particular case, what I'm talking about is that you notice that there is a spot elevation here, but you always get this this error message saying that, oh yeah, you can't find any object until you get this. You have to draw in your furniture first, and then you kind of have to put in the spot elevation in order for it to work. Now, what if you could do the other way, where it does tie two levels, but at the same time you can make it tie to that? So what I typically do, let's go back to this project. I'm just going to open up a project that I'm working on. This one. Let's go to this trusty one. Now this is very important because you could use this for plans, you can use it for section, you can use it for pretty much details. Anything related to that, you can do that. Okay, so the first thing you do is you find a symbol. So let's assume that I'm going to use this symbol, this level 1. Okay, I'm just going to use that, copy this. All right. Let's assume that I'm going to use that and paste it into, let's say, drafting view, save view. So assume that it's right here. It's not tying to anything. Now, the first thing you want to do with this is to basically tie it, create a level. Okay, so create like a section or something. Let's assume that I'm going to create an elevation or a section, depending on which one you want. I typically use section, but elevation works fine as well. So first thing first is that you create an elevation, call it something else. Let's say building. Okay. you're going to do with this is that you're going to tie it into a level 0. Okay, that level 0 could be anywhere, depending on where's your project, but this has to be an absolute 0. So here I'm just going to see if there's an absolute 0. So my absolute 0 is right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to turn this into do not display. Okay, I don't see anything. The other thing I would do is that rename this elevation. So you could call it like calculated value level. Okay, and I always put do not remove. All right, so sometimes people just remove that stuff. Don't mind my spelling. I know I spelled it wrong, but for now I'm just going to just demonstrate how this works. The first thing you want to do is you tie your dimension from here to there. Okay, I should probably make this thing a little bit larger. So let's say I'm going to go 1/8. Again, you're going to go 0 again to basement, 0 to level 1, 0 to level 2. Let's assume that, okay, that's top of ridge, and etc. Okay, so once you have that, now next thing you do is that you will want to click on this. What this does is that this is basically becomes your global parameter. So here I'm just going to say elevator pit elevation. Okay, I'm just going to say okay. Notice that this global parameter exists if you have 2016 and you have to install Service Pack, I believe 2. 27, it comes with it. The new version does have it. So if you're using anything older than 2015, you don't have this feature. Just to keep in mind. Okay, so basement elevation. Level 1 elevation. Oh, I forgot to mention. But now, if you made a mistake, let's assume that this is level elevation. You can always go back to global parameter and change this here. Level 1 elevation, say OK. Just make sure the names are consistent. Okay. And then here, I'm just going to say top of plate elevation. Next, I'm going to do the top of ridge elevation. So what you have is that you have elevation marker. It will give you the symbology. Okay. If you turn this on, let's say I want to say reveal this one, reveal constraints. You notice that it will tell you what they are. Okay. That's what it does. So reveal constraints, that's what it does. Once you have this, now I'm going to go back to my save view. Now let's assume that this is a drafting view. You're doing a detail. You want to tie this into something. Now, the benefit of this is that now you could do is you could select that and say, okay, which one I want to tie it to. So I'm going to say level 1 elevation. Okay. Say this is level 2. So I'm going to say level 2. You can create the type parameter, but I'm just showing you very quickly what this could do. And you can actually add parameter where you could say subtract the elevation from this. Now, the benefit of doing this, is that if, let's say, assume that my basement level changes. Okay, I'm going to do this real time. WT. Ooh, too bad. That's too many. Okay, so here I'm just gonna. I'm gonna change that. So let's assume I don't need that. I don't need that. Let's assume that this elevation changes. And I'm going to move this up by, let's say, 1 for 10. You notice that this level will automatically change. Let's assume. Let me go down. Let's see what does if I go down. Oh, I see. Okay. The reason why I get an error because I locked this. So, yeah, my bad. Okay. So it can change. Okay, so if you move up and down, if you're not tying into anything, you're fine. This will automatically change your elevation. Maybe I should just unseat it. Let's see what it does. I'm just going to remove that constraint since this is just a demonstration. I'm going to remove it. Okay, so that one. Did it change? No, didn't change. I wonder why. Let's go again. Let's change it again. Okay, so here I'm just going to go in, take a look. That's my basement elevation. I think I probably killed the basement elevation. Very strange. What is it doing? Oh, I see. Okay, I get you. Okay, this is bad. Okay, never have any. Okay, so let's see what it does. Okay, that's the default. That's basement elevation. That's good. Oh, one thing I forgot to do. I'm sorry. When you click on this, make sure it's a reporting parameter. That's what I want. Yes, you have to do that. Yeah, this is something I forgot to do. Okay, let's undo it. Okay, I'm going to go back to global parameter, check that, and make sure they all report. I forgot to mention that. What report does is that it is relying on that level to do your reporting. And then anything changes will automatically update those values. Okay, so let's assume that this is level 2. Let's assume that I'm going to copy this and change that to basement. Okay, as an example. And let's say basement. Okay, let's assume that I'm going to change this. That's fine. You notice that right now this and that changes. Okay, so that little trick can trigger it, right? So if you go to global parameter, yeah. So if you want this to report the proper value, it's better to make it so that the reporting. So that's one step I forgot to mention earlier. So that's why it wasn't updating. So just keep in mind, make sure that it's kept to reporting parameter. Okay, once that's done, so let's move on to the next one. All right, let's create a general notes using key schedule. Now in Revit, what typically people will do is that they would put in a text. Okay, they would do this as their general note. Now, the history for this is that Revit or Autodesk specifically, they keep updating their text engine. And then from one version, 2016, jump up to 2017, you notice that your general notes would slightly changes. And then now in 2018, they changed again. In 2019, it's another different cases. I don't know what they did to it. So rather than having something that is not really stable, okay, text is never stable. So what I typically recommend users doing is that you would build that into a database so that you have a text that you can use in the future. So typically general notes, I would just use it as a schedule so that user could just go in there and add or modify as they need it. Okay, so how you start that? Maybe I should start with, let's start with this project. Project 1, okay. So the easiest way, if you want to create a dummy schedule, okay, is you go to schedule. First thing you choose is that choose a schedule that you're not going to use. Okay, could be air terminal. Just keep in mind, if you are working with consultants, do not use their thing. But if they're not using it, then go ahead, just use it. So in most cases, what I typically do is that if I want to do general notes, I would use one of the things that it's not going to get picked up. One particular is that you could use massing, okay? Because massing is just like a starting point of the project so that nobody knows what it is. For this one, I'm just going to go general notes. Here you could say put in general notes. Now, what this will do is you could say add comments. That's it. And now what you could do is I'm going to expand to this. Okay? And what you do is that you put in number 1. You can call it whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. And then you want to insert 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you just keep adding in, and then you just put in your notes. Now, the benefit of this is that once you have this schedule established, let's say general notes, I could copy this, and let's assume that this is a new project, let's say construction. You can copy that schedule and paste it in here. And then you notice that this schedule automatically gets populated. Okay? So very, very intuitive. So if you have one schedule that you want to create for, let's say, the whole project, all you have to do is just create one you think the office is going to use, and what you do is that you could copy it and paste it into a schedule. So there you go. So general notes is part of that. Okay. All right. The next method. Okay. So the next method of creating a fixed schedule, it's basically what you're going to do is just create a schedule. You can choose anything. I could use air terminal because it's not going to get picked up. First thing you want to do is that just add something. I usually use the mark. Okay. The next step you want to do is in the appearance, do not show header. Okay. Turn off grid lines. Once you do that, okay, just expand on this. This is where you're going to go in and modify the schedule. So what I typically do is that I like to clear cell, and I like to insert row below. Now I like to split. So what you could do is that you could say insert. So there we go. Now the size is very, very particular. So if you want, you could say, okay, what's the size of this? Let's say this is 5 millimeter, and you can say size, say 5 millimeter. So let's say I want this to be 1, this is to be 2, and you can say blah 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 blah, and then you just keep insert in. Now this thing does require you to be very fixed, because what happened is that this schedule is very flexible. You could go in and insert in your role. Okay. The problem is that it could get very, very messy if the user doesn't understand how it works. So if you, let's say if you want to add in a role in between, it doesn't allow you to do it. So you kind of have to make sure that if you missed out on the previous role, you have to kind of say, okay, this is number 5, and then you kind of have to add the additional from the previous one. So it has its up and down, but I sometimes use this to create my schedule. I'm just going to show you kind of like the example that I usually do. You can actually build quite a bit of stuff using this method. So let's say schedule. So if you want to create a fixed schedule for, like, this node is general notes. Okay, you could put in abbreviation. At the same time, I'm just going to go in building code sample. Now this is using just a fake schedule, right? So if I go edit in here, a lot of this notation, it's using that. It's an example. So if you set it up, let's say you have a template that you want to create where you say a civic address, legal description, etc. You can follow that format and set it up the way you want it. And what happens is that you could actually put in those information becomes very nice because it is a Revit schedule. Okay, and what you do here is that user could just put it in dummy information if they need to, or they could tie it into the real thing. Okay, I won't go too much into this, especially how do you tie it into the real thing, because here it's an example. User could just go in there and just manipulate the values. So this becomes a very powerful thing if you choose to use this method and keep everything within Revit. This is a way to do it. There is a plugin which I do recommend user trying out. It's sticky. Okay. I used their tool before. It's very, very useful because what happened is that they will take your Excel and convert them into this sort of a format. So if you hate manually putting in those information, I would recommend purchasing one of their tools because it's very, very good. I tried it and it works out. Like what you see in Excel is what you get inside Revit. So this format can take a while to build, right? If you do it manually. But if you have ID sticky, it'll just basically take whatever is inside Excel and just pump it in there. I think the license was about, last time I checked was like $1,000 Canadian, I believe. In US, it's probably cheaper. So the more license you purchase, I think if you buy 5, they give you discounts. So yeah, I do recommend those plugins. All right. Lastly, let's talk about this decal using TopoMap. Now, I know that Revit is not very good at creating, let's say, massing studies, especially inside Revit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of like how I would set it up. Let's assume that you have a picture. Let's assume that you have this. I'm just using this as an example. Let's assume that this is what you want and you want to put that into Revit. How would you do it? All right. So the first thing I would do is just create a floor. Okay, I'm just going to make this thing 50 meters. Assume that the site is 50 meters. This could be as big as you want. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you insert, click on this decal, and place decal. The next thing you do here is that you will create a new decal and call the site image. In here, I'm just going to choose the one that I've downloaded. Here, go to download, and click on, let's say, date modify. I believe I called it this one. That's the one. All right, finish. You can see glossy, semi-glossy, or matte. I just choose matte. Bump material, I just use the same file, okay, just to give that relief. So here, I'm just going to go in, click on that, hit open. Okay, this is what you're going to get. Open and just put it in there. Now, what I typically like to do with here is that for the height, I would just make it the same as that. So let's say this is 50 meters. Okay, and put it somewhere there, and then just match your site according to that. Now, you're not going to see anything until you put on realistic. You want to do here is that you want to build, like, let's say, a building example of a building. Let's say I'm going to go site. This makes sense if it's in here. I'm going to hide this category. Okay, let's say realistic. So let's say I'm here. I want to build this building. So here I'm just going to use a simple roof. I'm going to call this massing. Let's assume that this is 10 meter high. So let's say 10 meter. Here, I'm just going to choose what's known as massing. Sure, massing glazing is fine. Sure. Here, I'm just going to draw it in. There we go. That's what I want. Next thing you do here is you turn on that realistic. Now this is pretty good, especially if you want to do like a massing study. This becomes a very, very good kind of, do it within Revit. I know that a lot of people would say, oh, I want to use SketchUp because it can do all this stuff. Uh, don't rule out this option because I find this option to be very, very useful, especially if you want to do like early stage of conceptual design when you don't rely on any topographics or anything. All you need is just an image, just plunk it in there and then do your massing studies. Now, keep in mind is that Decal requires you to understand how big is your site. So if you know how big is your site, then you can actually scale it accordingly. Here, I'm just magically just put in a value and then just making it as kind of like a massing study. But if you want to make it an accurate site measurement, then yes, I would recommend you having property lines and just say do an estimate how much this distance from this point to that point, and then you scale it accordingly. Yeah, this does offer a lot, especially if you are doing like shadow studies and see how the shadow impacts the site, for instance. This is a perfect way to do it. You could just take a picture or put this on a page, and it looks like it's coming from SketchUp, but it's not SketchUp. All right, I hope you guys learned something today. If you guys have audio problems, just let me know because I've been trying to fix it as much as I can, but I'm not sure if it's the audio problems or if it's the software problems. So please let me know. Thanks. Bye-bye.